Hi folks, my name is Vincent. I thought it is good that I share the knowledge that I have in physiology and biochemistry and some pharmacology. So I hope these videos will help you somewhere as we proceed. So be sure to comment and to like this video at the end, and also maybe you can give suggestions. Now today let's begin by discussing about the stomach. And the stomach here we mean the human stomach. So let's first discuss on the location of the stomach in the human body. Now the stomach is an hollow uh, uh, organ that is situated just below the diaphragm. So if you can touch the diaphragm, so below the diaphragm, that's where the stomach is located. So we have said a stomach is an hollow organ situated below the diaphragm on the left side of the abdominal cavity. It is on the left side of the abdominal cavity. That means that on the right side of the stomach, that's where we have the liver. So if the liver is on the left side, then just after the liver, that's where we have the stomach. Now the volume of the stomach, that's an empty stomach, is about 50 milliliters. So when your stomach is empty, is about 50 milliliters in volume. Now under normal conditions, in normal people, the stomach can accommodate up to 1 liter and 1.5 liters of solids and liquids. Now, however, the stomach is very able and capable of expanding till up to 4 liters volume. So your stomach can accommodate, can expand up to 4 liters. Okay. Now, after having known the location of the stomach, now let's discuss about different parts of the stomach. Now, the human stomach has 4 different parts. Number 1, we have the cardiac region. Number 2, we have the fundus. Some people read it as fundus. Number 3, we have the corpus or the body, which is the largest part of the stomach. And number 4, we have the pyloric region. The pyloric region. Now let's discuss further about the cardiac region and other other 3 parts of the stomach. Now, if you can remember, I've just told you that the stomach has 4 regions. We said the cardiac region, the fundus or the fundus. Number 3, we said the body. Number 4, the pyloric region. Now, the cardiac region is the upper part of the stomach where the esophagus opens. Now, the cardiac region is the upper part of the stomach, whereby the esophagus opens into the stomach. Now, the opening is guarded by a sphincter called the cardiac sphincter, which opens into the stomach. Now, the direction of opening is towards the stomach. It is towards the stomach. Now, this helps the food that is in the stomach not to escape up through the esophagus. So the cardiac sphincter is very important. Now, this portion of the stomach is sometimes called cardiac end. It's called the cardiac end. Now, there's this part of the stomach that we said is called the fundus or the fundus. Now, the fundus is a small dome-shaped. It's dome-shaped structure which is elevated above the esophageal opening. It's elevated above the esophageal opening. Okay. Now let's see about let's say something about the body or the corpus. Now the body of the stomach is the largest part of the stomach, which forms about 75 to 80% of the whole stomach. It extends from just below the fundus up to the pyloric region. Okay. Now number 4, we have the pyloric region. The pyloric region is a part of the stomach which opens towards the duodenum. Now the pyloric region has two parts. We have the antrum and the pyloric canal. The body of the stomach ends at the antrum. Now the junction between the body and the antrum is marked by the angular notch. Called the incisura. That word is very hard for me to pronounce, but it's called incisura angularis. Incisura angularis. Now the antrum is continued as the narrow canal, which is called the pyloric canal. Now this pyloric canal opens first into the small intestine called duodenum. So the pyloric canal opens into the duodenum. Now the opening of the pyloric canal is guarded also by a sphincter that we call the pyloric sphincter. Now, the stomach has two cavages. One is on the right side and the other one is on the left side. Now, the cavager that is on the left side is a lesser cavager, while the one that is on the right side is the greater cavager. Now, I see it is wise also to look at the stomach wall. Let us see how the structure of the stomach wall is and its functions. Remember, this stomach wall is where we have so many regions that have functions that includes function of secreting mucus and other gastric contents, such as gastric acid. Now, the stomach wall is formed by 4 layers of structures. So we have 4 layers that form the stomach wall. Now we have the outer layer, which is also called the outer serous layer, which is formed by something that we call the peritoneum. Number 2, we have the muscular layer. The muscular layer is made up of 3 layers of smooth muscle fibers, namely the inner oblique, middle circular, and the longitudinal layer. Okay. Hope you understand that the stomach wall is formed by 4 layers. Okay. Now number 3 of that layer is the submucous layer. Now, this layer is formed by the areolar tissue. Areolar tissue is also formed by blood vessels, lymph vessels, some people read it as lymph vessels, and lastly, the Meissner nerve plexus. Meissner nerve plexus. Now, inner mucus layer is number 4 part of the stomach wall layer, which is lined by mucus secreting columnar epithelial cells. So the columnar epithelial cells are the ones that secrete the mucus in the stomach. Okay. Now, the gastric glands are situated. The gastric glands are situated in this layer. Under resting conditions, the mucosa of the stomach is thrown into folds. That is to say that when resting, when the stomach is not working or is not digesting any food, now this part of the stomach wall is folded, okay, into many folds. Now these folds are called rugi. Some say it's rag, some can read it as reggae, but it's not reggae, it's rag. Now the rag disappear when the stomach is distended after meals. So when you eat when you eat meals or food, now these folds disappear. Now the ruggedness of the stomach will disappear, and the stomach now will be stretched. Okay, so the folds will disappear. Now, throughout the inner mucus layer, small depressions called the gastric pits are present. Now, these gastric pits of the stomach are the ones that contain the glands of the stomach. So the gastric glands of the stomach open into these pits. Now, the gastric pits are the roots from which the gastric glands empty their contents. You get that point? Okay. The inner surface of the mucus layer is covered by 2 millimeter thick mucus. So the mucus in the stomach mostly is about 2 millimeters thick. 2 millimeters thick. Now, let's see the structure of the gastric glands that open into the gastric pits that we have just said, that are located in the 4th layer of the stomach wall, which is the inner mucus wall. Okay. Now, the Fundic glands are considered as a typical gastric gland. The Fundic glands are considered as the typical gastric glands. These glands are long and tubular. They are long and tubular. Now, each gland has 3 parts. Number 1, we have the body, the neck, the isthmus, and the fizz. So that is to say we have this, we have body, we have neck, and the isthmus. Now, cells of the fundus glands. Now, the cells of the fundus glands are divided have so many include let's say the following cells. We have chief cells. Some people also can call them pepsinogen cells. So pepsinogen cells are part of the cells of the Fundic glands. And we have said Fundic glands are considered as the typical gastric glands. Okay, so the fundus glands have the chief cells, which is also known as pepsinogen cells. Number 2, we have parietal cells or the oxyntic cells. Number 4, we have mucous neck cells. And number 5, we have enterochromaffin cells. And number 5, we have enterochromaffin-like cells. Now, let's discuss about the parietal cells that we have mentioned above. Now, the parietal cells have different the parietal cells are different from other cells of the fundus gland because of the presence of the canaliculi. So canaliculi, or in singular you can say it's called canaliculars. These biology words, they are very, very, very hard to pronounce, but anyway, the parietal cells empty their secretions into the lumen of the gland through the canalulus. This word, or whatever, the canaliculi. But other cells empty their secretions directly into lumen of the gland. Okay. Now we have the pyloric glands. The pyloric glands are short in the tubular. They are short and they are short in nature. Now these glands are formed by G cells and mucus cells. Now, number 3, we have the cardiac glands. So if you can remember, these are the glands that we mentioned, the glands of the inner stomach wall. We have the fundus gland. No, we have the pyloric glands. We say the fundic glands, the pyloric glands, and now we have cardiac glands. Now the cardiac glands also are short in structure with many mucus cells. Okay, now let me jump and discuss about the enteroendocrine cells. Enteroendocrine cells. Enteroendocrine cells. Now, when we say enteroendocrine cells, these are cells that secrete the endocrine hormones. So enteroendocrine cells are the hormone-secreting cells present in the glands or the mucosa of the gastrointestinal tract, particularly the stomach and the intestine. Now, the enteroendocrine cells present in the gastric glands are the G cells. So the G cells are responsible for producing enteroendocrine cells. Now let's see the functions of the gastric glands. Now this is the important part of the study about the human stomach. Now the function of the gastric gland is to secrete gastric juice. I hope everyone knows that gastric glands are responsible for secretion of gastric juice. Now, the secretory activities of different cells of gastric glands and enteroendocrine cells are as follows. Okay, now, before we go further, I can ask you a question. What are the functions of the stomach? Some people can say storage of food, digestion, and etc. But I think it is important that we revise together the functions of the stomach. Number one function of the stomach is the storage function. Food that we eat is stored in the stomach for a long period of time, that is usually between 3 hours to 4 hours, and emptied into the intestine slowly. So food is emptied into the intestines through the duodenum after 3 to 4 hours. So that means that food has to be stored in the stomach for around 3 to 4 hours after eating. Now, the maximum capacity of the stomach, we said, is up to 1.5 liters. But we said the stomach can expand even up to 4 liters. Now, slow emptying of the stomach provides enough time for proper digestion and absorption of food substances in small intestine. So, the stomach is designed in such a way that the food that has been eaten, it's emptied after 3 to 4 hours from the stomach to the duodenum into the small intestine at a slower rate, so that this increases the time that is required for the absorption and the digestion of food in the small intestine. And later we'll see how the small intestine is adapted to its function so that it can also provide more time for digestion and absorption of food. Now, the second function of the stomach is the formation of chyme. Now, in the stomach, we have a movement that we call peristaltic movement. This is the mechanical movement which assists the stomach to mix the food with gastric juice and convert it into semi-solid material. Now, in short, we can say this is like a portion meal, or it's like a machine, a factory that mixes the bolus food that we eat with gastric juice to turn it into a semi-solid material known as chyme. Okay. Now let's look at the digestive function of the stomach. But before we look at the digestive function of the stomach, let's also mention that the stomach has a protective function which helps to protect the stomach against infections and digestion from its own stomach acid. Okay, now when we shall discuss about digestion, we shall also discuss more about the gastric function. Now we shall also discuss about the digestive function of the stomach under that part. For now, let's not discuss about digestive function of the stomach and the protective function of the stomach, because all these we shall discuss them under the functions of the gastric juice later. Okay, now I hope you are learning something from this tutorial, because I'm really trying, because it has been a long time since I went through discussing about the stomach.